Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sports Tech Allstars podcast. This is a special edition on site here in Riyadh. I've been invited to the Esports World Cup finals, where I'll spend the next couple of days, Saturday and Sunday, talking to some experts from the industry, just feeling the vibe really of what this event is going to be like. It's the first time it's being hosted here, so I'm curious as well. We usually talk more about sports on this show, but we're going to dive into the world of esports for a little bit. I've got a series of really interesting guests that we're going to bring onto this show all live. So this should be fun. My first guest is Andrew Chen, who is a general partner at A16Z Games. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on. And like I said, we don't spend a lot of time in the world of esports and gaming, but I know you've spent a fair bit of time.
That's right.
For anybody who doesn't know who you are and where you've come from, maybe set the context for us, a little bit about your background and what got you to this position as a head of a pretty serious gaming firm.
That's right. Yeah. So at Andreessen Horowitz, we have a dedicated fund focused on gaming and the gaming ecosystem. We often talk about it as the intersection of tech and games. And so that means that we are investing a pair of $600 million plus funds, so over $1 billion now under management, focused on game studios. You know, some of these game studios are companies that are making potentially new esports games, right? Which is very exciting. And so, for example, we have a new game that's coming out called Spectre. By a company Mountaintop, run by one of the co-founders of Oculus, which makes the VR headsets that was bought by Meta, and that's a great example of something that's may become an esport unto itself. We're also doing a lot of investing around all of the new AI technologies that are emerging. So imagine if the same way that you have text to image, that there's also text to game or text to asset or text to music and sound. And so we're very excited about sort of all of the B2B tools in order to build these games in an easier way, and then also playable apps, right? Think of these as products like Duolingo that use game mechanics in order to make their products even more engaging, or Twitch or Discord or many of these products that aren't games themselves, but target the ecosystem. And so yeah, you asked a little bit about how I came into this. Just like any kid computer nerd, you grow up playing Zelda, you play Doom, you play Quake, you do all the things. And pretty soon you start asking yourself, how do I actually build something like this? And then you start coding, and then you quickly find, oh, there's a whole industry and in fact a whole city that's devoted to all of this. And so I found myself in my 20s moving to Silicon Valley and being involved in a series of startups and eventually finding myself at Uber during some of the hyper growth years there, where we grew to 800 markets and got 100 million active users and many other exciting and interesting things. And then about just under 7 years ago, ended up at Andreessen Horowitz as a venture capital investor. And I started originally by investing in everything consumer facing. So think of that as the Substacks and Clubhouses and those kinds of apps in the world. But then also finding that there were, to return to my childhood favorite, experiences, an opportunity in companies like Roblox, which we invested in, and then a whole series of other game startups that we've now pioneered and really built a whole business around. So yeah, that's how I've been gotten into the industry.
And done a couple of other things along the way. I know you're a successful blogger, column writer. You have your own Substack, of course, andrewchen.substack.com.
Yes.
If everybody's interested. And just dropped a best-selling book along the way as well, Cold Start Problem. I haven't read it. I have to be honest, this is all part of my research as we were leading up to this interview. But yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit about that book. Well, it's for founders. Yeah?
Yes. So it's for founders, and it really reflects on my time at Uber, and also in various other roles. I've advised the founders and growth teams at Tinder and Dropbox. So it's sort of a reflection of many of the top companies out there. And the thing that is sort of shared amongst these companies is the idea that oftentimes it's not just the product that needs to be successful. You actually need to find an audience that wants to connect with each other using the product, right? And so, the ability to do that is really, is often called network effects. And so the book is about how do you create a network effect from zero. And so I ended up, as part of writing the book over 3 years, interviewing the CEOs of Slack and Twitch and Zoom and Dropbox and Tinder, as I mentioned, and many, many other successful companies along the way. And so the book is about sort of part personal experience, part from these interviews, and really going through all the lessons that I've learned in being part of the tech industry over the last 20 years.
Now I want to read the book. I feel like I should. But thanks for that, Andrew. And also, you mentioned Duolingo a while back. I'm trying to keep my 98-day streak alive.
Yes,
learning
yes,
German.
they've got you. You're hooked.
It's just that I can't get away from that number just ticking over.
Yes.
And that's part of the hook, right? And
Yes,
that's part of
that's
how
right.
the gamification plays a big role in that stickiness of the app, getting the K factor above 1, and making sure that the virality of the app is all of that is there. Now, I want to apply those learnings. I think we set the context well. I want to apply those learnings then that you bring into the gaming world, and how maybe a little bit more about what made you set up this fund. I believe there was one transaction that you all did, which kind of brought you into this world. And how do you apply those learnings from the consumer markets
Yes.
into, let's say, the gaming and esports world?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think the first thing to realize here is that the entire media and entertainment industry is being transformed right in front of our eyes, right? And well, how is it being changed? Well, what we're seeing, of course, is this world of old distribution models, right? Cable, television. And for gaming, it was literally going to Best Buy and buying a DVD that you put into your Xbox. And that was the old world, right? And in the old world, what would happen is it was really about just selling that DVD for $60. And how do you sort of create 50 hours of entertainment, for people? And I think along the way, what the whole industry realized, particularly in gaming, but frankly, this is also affecting the streaming markets and the overall sports market as well, and just general kind of consumer entertainment, is that what we found in the last decade was that the most engaging products in the world are the products that people actually use with their friends, right? And it is way more compelling and way stickier to be able to play a game like Fortnite or Valorant or Counter-Strike or Minecraft with your friends. That's something that you can do every day, and you might even do it for a decade plus, which is how sticky these products are, rather than thinking about it as, hey, it's a hits-driven business. I'm going to put a DVD into my Xbox. I'm going to play it for 50 hours, and then I'm going to put it away and put it in my closet alongside all the other DVDs. And so because of that transformation, what we're seeing is products that aren't just, don't just have this kind of, shark fin view where you end up, with a huge launch in week 1, week 2, and then it kind of trails off. But instead, you see the active users actually growing year after year after year. You look at, some of the last couple of years. Minecraft, which has been around for such a long time, continues to grow. And again, it's because of the fact that it's a game that you can play with your friends. And so part of the thesis of the gaming fund at Andreessen Horowitz is the idea that these are the new consumer experiences that are bringing people together. And a lot of kids actually have way more experiences hanging out and playing in all of these games, from when they're early teenage years, and they get many, many years of this before they get access to Instagram or TikTok or otherwise. And so, it's part of my thesis here is that what we're going to see is we're going to see a reimagining of all of these social apps and all of these social networks, so that in 10 years, maybe some of the products that we end up, some of the most popular products out there are going to have aspects of gaming. And, very importantly, I think for the sports world, a whole new aspect of competition via these products in a way that we haven't seen in the past. And so, as many of the folks that are following sports know, when you look at the average age of viewers of baseball and golf, right, which are quite old. I think it's 50 years old plus at this point. And then looking at American football and basketball, that's a little bit younger, right? But not, but still kind of, 40 plus years old kind of thing on, if you're talking about the average audience. And it's really gaming that has captured the imagination of young people. And so we really think of this as the ability to bet on the future. And the fact that gaming at the end of the day is software means that it is able to take advantage of cloud computing, open source, generative AI, all of the really amazing new technologies that are taking the world by force. And being able to take all of that and invest in it early and to let this category sort of define the next generation of entertainment, media, social networks, and that's why it's going to be it's already a huge industry. It's going to be even bigger in future years.
That's fair. I think there's no secret that the sports industry has been looking at the gaming industry for a while now to try to reach that younger audience. Again,
That's right.
I don't think it's disclosing any secrets that FIFA, it's a big part of FIFA's strategy, for example, about how they make sure that football is, it's the biggest sport in the world, but how it's kind of future-proof is by making sure that the kids get in through the games and that they become fans of the sport and become fans of the teams.
Yes.
Various other sports have tried the same. But you're seeing the transference the other side, where gaming is, through esports, is trying to build that professional layer.
That's right.
To learn from sports, where you can build fandom and build teams and build a competitive edge to gaming, which is beyond just the social layer, which you talked about, which is, hey, people on stream and microtransactions and all that stuff that sports is learning from gaming. What do you think are the biggest takeaways that gaming and esports, specifically a World Cup like this format, for example, comes from sport, right?
That's right. That's right.
They're clearly borrowing a few things.
Yes.
From your perspective, what are those things that esports and gaming can look at sports and learn and bring into it?
Yes. Well, some of our we've invested in a number of startups that have come out of Riot Games, and Riot, of course, has been such an amazing kind of visionary player in esports and this idea of competitive gaming. And one of the things when I talk to my friends there that they often talk about is, people kind of imagine playing video games. And it sort of took a big step to think that people will want to watch other people play video games. There's a little bit of a kind of a funny, jump that you have to make to realize that is actually really interesting. And you could argue when you think about sports in the same way, it's also very interesting. We all understand why you'd want to play tennis or why you'd want to, play football. But it's hard to understand, wow, why is it for every person that plays basketball professionally, there's millions of people that want to watch this person play, basketball, right? And
I've had that conversation at many a dinner table with many a girlfriend, like, why are you watching? Like, what is that about?
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think what we learned is, look, it's not just that obviously we love to relive maybe some of the joy that we had as kids in a sport. That's why you can always, sport is always more watchable when you played it as a kid, right? I think that's, there's an emotional tie, but also it's a cultural event. It's a media event. And then there's all these other activities that you can do around it. It can be somewhere that you go, to an event, to a stadium. There's also sports betting, right? There's also, there's fantasy football, fantasy sports, that are involved in all these. So I think there's just so many activities, human activities, cultural activities that bring people, together with sports.
If I can add to that, Andrew,
Yeah, no, please.
my answer to that is always, you watch a movie. Why do you watch a movie? It's the story.
Yes.
Sports is storytelling.
Absolutely.
If you watch that underdog who's been training for whatever, or these two teams that are competing, one is the rich team and one is the poor team from the small, like that is just storytelling, right? And
That's
sports
right.
is such a powerful story that if you just put it on the screen, which is why, and we talk about this in our content all the time, which is why the Netflixes and the Amazon Primes and Amazons and Googles of the world are investing so much in live sports broadcasting, because they spend millions and billions of dollars on their studios to make movies and shows.
Yes.
Here, the story is there. Just put
That's
it
right.
on.
That's right.
Just
And
put
after
it on.
you watch one of these, these little miniseries on F1 or, Tour de France or something like that.
Amazing. That Unchained is amazing. It's my favorite
Absolutely,
one.
absolutely. And so once you get the context and you get the story, then of course you get then you're in. Then you understand the characters and the plot and the rivalries and the conflict, right? And so to bring that back to esports, right? I think first, game developers realizing that one day for their games that there will be more people watching people play their games than playing their games, right? And I think that for game developers is often just like it just blows their mind that that's the case. And look, it's already happening, right? There's actually quite a lot of data that's saying that there are more viewers of League of Legends than people who are actively playing, because you have, that game's been around for a very long time, over a decade at this point. And so there's a lot of people that are, not good enough or, actively playing enough to actually do it, but they will, tune into all the various, Riot events that they put on. And so I think to continue the metaphor, I would say once you kind of realize that that's the case, then all of a sudden, then the question is, okay, yeah, well, what are the stories? How do you create that conflict? How do you create these, anchor events, to bring that together? But I also think, the other interesting thing too is, ultimately, I would hope that within gaming that not only do they embrace a lot of what's worked in traditional sports, but that they also continue to find new avenues that maybe didn't exist before, right? Like I find it so amazing that at any moment in time, you can see world-class play of, most of the games that are out there simply by going to Twitch and just tuning in, right? And that's an example of something that's really native to gaming that doesn't exist, in sports. And so I think that ends up being very exciting.
Or Roblox. We talked about it on literally the elevator ride coming up. That there's a reason that it's a phenomenon that it is, because kids just live there.
That's right.
They literally live there. They're just there, hanging out, playing some games, chilling with others, and that's an interesting layer to add. That it's you don't always have to do something.
Yes,
you can just experience it, and there's something to that as well.
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah, and so I think those are the unique aspects of games. Right. So I always think about it as there's a word that's often used, which is kind of skeuomorphic. Which is to say when you invented film initially, the very first thing that they tried to do with film was just to shoot film of plays. And so everything looked like it was a play. It was a single camera, fixed, right. People just talking to each other, because that's all you could really imagine, right? And and in the same way, if you're going to build any of these new technologies, it's really easy to go skeuomorphic and just say, okay, well, what's been done before? I'm just going to do that, right? But I think the really exciting and new capabilities of gaming and sort of the esports world kind of around it is to do new things. And so I think live streaming is very interesting. I think kind of creator economy is very interesting. How do you make it so that you really feel like you have a connection with many of the players? That's a very intrinsically digital phenomenon. You also I think looking at potentially branding and microtransactions and having kind of because again it's software, right? And so you could maybe update the game constantly based on the creators that are playing it. I think there's a lot of very interesting integrations and new things that we're going to see over the next decade.
Sounds exciting. I want to go back to the fund and the kind of different properties that you'll invest in. You mentioned that the games themselves, which could be part of, let's say, a next edition of an Esports World Cup, and then there are, let's say, the ancillary tools or the enablement layer, which helps the gamer, the athlete, whatever, or the audience or the fan come into that game a bit better. And also, you mentioned startups. Are there any tools or any areas specifically that you look at and say, hey, that's an area that we're kind of exploring a bit more?
Yes.
Either Gen AI based content that gets on stream or something. Any topics that you're especially paying a lot of attention to?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of go with the sports angle a bit on all of this, which is to say, we're always looking at what is changing the most, right, in terms of consumer behavior, in terms of new gaming platforms, et cetera, and in fact, new kind of regulatory environment as well, which I'll hit on. And so I'll give a couple examples of what we're excited about. So, we have a company that's called Voldex. They're actually, the founder, Alex Singer, is actually here in Riyadh for a few days. And what he's been doing is he's been buying and building a number of Roblox games that are focused on sports, but they're all Roblox games, right? And millions of players are very excited about them. They have one game that's called Ultimate Football. They have another one that's called Driving Empire. And his goal is really to build almost like a EA Sports kind of franchise on top of the Roblox platform, which is something that is used by the majority of young kids, in the U.S. at this point, right? And so that's one great example. As long as Roblox continues to grow, which they've been, then that's all of a sudden a very interesting platform. Another great one is we've obviously seen a ton of innovation in VR over the last couple of years, and so the Oculus Quest platform is continues to grow. If you look at the units sold at this point, it's sort of equivalent to the latest Xbox series, and so think of it as sort of like a tens of millions of users kind of platform. And so we invest in a company called Gym Class VR that has a collaboration with the NBA, and the idea there is what does a first class basketball experience look like within VR. And so not only are you in there with your controller shooting hoops, but also more importantly, it's, as we were talking about, sort of a third place. It's the place that, where you go and you hang out with your friends, you're shooting the breeze, you're catching up on life, and you're shooting hoops, and you have a very casual kind of experience along that. And then the third example I'll give you is a company called Sleeper, which is a fantasy sports product. Also millions of users, doing fantastically well. It's sort of, think of it as a social and chat experience built around originally fantasy football in the US, but now expanding to many other sports. And then, the really exciting thing there is as the regulatory environment is actually changing in the United States, they've been able to add a really, really unique and fun sports betting layer on top of their social product. So not only now can you, talk about sports with your friends, track what's happening, set up a fantasy football league, but now you can also bet with your friends as part of it as well, and it's done in a really clever way where you feel like you're doing it with your friends as opposed to against them, which is great. And so those are all examples of we're just always thinking about what's emerging, what's new. And how is it going to change the landscape in a way where there may be really interesting companies, that can scale, that can have millions of users, and so those are three good examples that have had a ton of traction in the market.
It's funny you mentioned Sleeper. Actually, I didn't know they were Andreessen Horowitz.
Yes, I'm on the board. Yeah, actually, the founder's here in Riyadh over the next couple of days.
I'd love to meet him. We literally mentioned Sleeper yesterday in our newsletter. We did a little post on different. Well, there's a new season of Fantasy Premier League. I'm a big fantasy sports player, and so we're like, hey, these are a bunch of tools, and there's an emerging economy around fantasy sports. So not just the game itself, but like different tools,
yes,
like tipsters and bettors, and things like that.
That's
right.
And
I mentioned Sleeper as one of the emerging formats. Like, hey, they're really just changing what all you can do within fantasy football. So it's funny you mentioned it.
Yes,
it was literally on my post yesterday. But cool, and I think this the to your previous point, the idea of where gaming, sports intersects. The exergaming, for example, is another area that we've talked a lot about, where you can put on a VR headset and you're playing a game which you're literally exercising, so it's for fitness as well. And that's, I think, a big emerging part of meta strategy with Oculus. We've seen sports become a big part of the Apple Vision Pro, for example, like in the Disney showcase. There were quite a few examples where you can watch the NBA with this multi-tiled format and in this immersed world. So
that's right.
Sports meeting, this third place, meeting gaming, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of intersection which could come about. So exciting times. So great to see the companies that you all are invested in. About the Esports World Cup itself, anything in particular you're looking out for over the next couple of days in Riyadh?
Yeah.
Just excited to experience the whole thing?
Yeah, well, I think, part of the reason, this is actually my second trip, to the kingdom. And, I just find, the region to be such a dynamic place, especially for gaming and for sports. And there's a lot of reasons for it, right? I think we're seeing, first off, that this is a country that has just an enormous number of young people, right? And again, what do young people want to do? It turns out they don't want to sit around and watch 2-hour movies. They want something interactive. They want things that are quick, that are snappy. And so of course gaming has become a huge part of what they're excited about. That's very exciting. Second, it is really the only country that has a national plan that has esports and gaming as one of the pillars of their plan. And so, as part of their, 2030, vision, it's something that not only are they thinking about some of the physical experiences of like stadiums for esports, but they also have quite a lot that's going, that they're working on related to the funding of of game studios. They're buying esports teams and ESL Faceit. They're doing a ton of stuff. And so it's just a very exciting kind of critical mass. So this is one of their first versions of this conference, and so it's just exciting to have to be part of it and to see all the energy and all the potential for this country. And I hope it is one of the first out of many that have excitement about gaming and esports. And I hope this is, a lot of folks in industries and governments start to see what an exciting sector this is and, follow suit in terms of, building, whether it's conferences or investment sectors or entire cities, that are based on it. I think this is, it's such a great place to be right now.
An exciting time indeed, and especially this format of attaching the conference right next to the event itself, where you can have that business conversation, you can have this exchange of ideas, and then have the actual event itself. Very, very nicely done. Andrew, to bring us home, what excites you over the next 12, 18 months for the fund? Any particular areas, any things that you want to share that you want to talk about?
Yes. Well, I mean, we've one of the best things about kicking off a new venture capital fund is you get to, look at a blank piece of paper and say, okay, how are we going to invest in this? That's maybe different than the way that we have seen folks invest in sort of traditional venture capital over the last couple of years. And so, one of the big innovations that we've stepped forward with is a program that's called Speedrun, and it is the first program that invests in the earliest stage companies at the intersection of tech and gaming. And so, these are folks that are, potentially people that have jobs right now and they're going to quit their job to start a new startup, as early as that, all the way to folks that have been operating their companies for a couple of years and are looking to, take it to the next level. And so, what we've done is we're investing, up to $1 million in 40 companies at a time, twice per year. And so we actually have a whole group that's in Los Angeles right now, 38 companies that are, going through a 12-week program. We've invested, they're networking and meeting some of the founders of, Zynga and Tinder and Scopely and many others. So that's very exciting. And that's where I'm spending a lot of my time, in addition to doubling down on some of the sort of, big, exciting companies that already have scale, whether that's in AI or in B2B or in some of these gamified apps. So so we're very excited over the next 12 to 18 months to deploy our second fund focused on tech and gaming.
All right. Andreessen Horowitz, Speedrun. Google it, I guess, and get all the information that you need, any early stage founders.
That's right.
And for anybody who wants to reach out to you, what's the best place to do that? Just follow you on LinkedIn or subscribe to your Substack?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I write, I try to write weekly on Substack. So that's andrewchen.substack.com. And I'm also very active on X. And I'm just under Andrew Chen there, and in fact, actually, our whole investing team and sort of the extended gaming team at A16Z, everyone's on X, posting almost every day. And so you can reach us there. You can drop us a DM or reply to one of our threads, and we'd love to meet you.
Brilliant. It never gets strange not to say X. Doesn't not get strange. But anyway, we'll leave that one aside. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Before I let you go, I have to ask one last question. It's my favorite question to ask. I like to believe that we're all sports fans first. So I want to know, what has been your favorite sporting moment?
Oh, yeah. Well, my favorite thing, I think, is the evolution of how I consume all of the Olympics content over the years, right? And so we all remember, waking up in the middle of the night to watch, your XYZ favorite Olympics event. And so I love that in this last cycle, in this last, Olympics, it's been all about social media, and so we've condensed the entire Olympics into exactly 5 clips of just the most important things.
What do I need to know?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So now I'm like, oh yeah, when if you're gonna be a breakdancer, like what's good breakdancing and what does avant-garde breakdancing look like, and you get to see all the most attractive people in the Olympics. You don't have to even search for anything. So no, it's just been great to see the memification of the Olympics. That's been my favorite way to consume all the sporting events now.
I was just in Paris and I got to visit the International Broadcasting Center, where the heartbeat of the Olympics essentially. And there was a lot of importance paid to these topics, to vertical video, to shareability, like how did that content get out there?
Yes,
So,
that's the future. That's the future.
Right on point. Thank you so much, Andrew, for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that is our wrap for the first episode in our series here in Riyadh around the Esports World Cup, around the new Global Sport Conference. We have a bunch of more exciting guests lined up. See you guys soon.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Tech Allstars podcast with Rohan Malhotra. If you like our show, let us know and leave a review. And if you want to know more about us, check out sportstechx.com, where you can find our latest industry reports and updates. For a deeper dive into all things sports tech, check out our comprehensive database, Sports Tech DB, at sportstechdb.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at SportsTechX on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Join us next time for another insightful conversation with a leader in sports tech.